Welcome back to another edition of the Tan and J-Man Show. A little different this week as I am the only one here live, present, and in studio. But don't worry, got the J-Man here on the phone. J-Man, what's going on? I missed you waving to the Tan and J-Man Show Nation.
You know, I was waving at my computer, but that just didn't make any sense, so I stopped.
Why does that not surprise me? I can just visualize it right now.
I had the muscle memory going.
It's just habit.
Yeah,
you're a creature of habit. So, well, we got to start things off. Of course, not a lot going on. As we're just hoping everybody stays safe and healthy out there, as we're all trying to get through this COVID-19 pandemic together. It's I think only going to get a little rougher from here on out, but we do have a few things to talk about, some NFL free agency, a few other questions that got sent in by the nation, and a few other topics. So should be a fun show, and hopefully we can take your mind off everything for at least an hour. But the Tan and J-Man Show this week is brought to you by, like it is every week, The Damn Landing. Whether you want an epic burger, hand-tossed pizza, hand-breaded tenderloin, seafood, craft beer, or a handcrafted cocktail, The Damn Landing is the place to be. The Damn Landing is a bar and grill located on beautiful Lake Manitou that focuses on freshness and quality. And they got the Damn Smoke going on right now. That's on Friday and Saturdays. Barbecue, steaks, including some ribs. They looked incredible on their Facebook page over the weekend. I actually did support the Damn Landing and the local restaurants. And I got some pizza Friday night, which was really good. So they are, even though you can't dine in there, you can still get takeout. So I recommend doing that. But once they get going again, you can wash that down with one of their 16 beers on tap, including a constant rotation of today's best microbrews and domestic flavors, or a handcrafted cocktail made using fresh ingredients. And you'll be able to take in the fantastic views of Lake Manitou in their beer garden or outdoor bar area. Whether it be by boat or wheels, the Damn Landing is the place to be, located at 1305 Ewing Road in Rochester. You better go get yourself some Damn Landing dinner sometime this week, J-Man.
You know, J-Man is a big fan of ribs, as you know, so I might just have to do that this weekend.
You better call in early. I think they go by pretty fast from what I've heard.
I'm sure.
So, you got some Birdie Bogey?
Yes, I do, and I'm trying to do the read without, because obviously I don't have the paper in front of me, but Birdie Bogey is brought to you by Noble Gnome LLC, fresh, locally grown, nutrient-dense produce from Bryce and Katie Romine of Mentone, Indiana. Like them on Facebook, follow them on Instagram, and check out their website, noblegnomellc.com.
And I got a little bit to add to that. You can sign up for their CSA right now. It's from May to September. The pickup date and day and time this year is going to be Thursdays from 3 to 6 p.m. The first day's on May 7th. The last day's on September 24th. That's at Romine Family Farms, 3328 South, 900 West, Mentone, Indiana, 46539. And you might be wondering, what does CSA stand for? It stands for Community Supported Agriculture. You have the ability to purchase a crop share of fresh, locally grown, nutrient-dense produce that you and your family can enjoy all summer long. And what do you get with that? You get a weekly box of fresh produce, newsletter, recipes, relationship with the farmer who grows your food, which would be Bryce and Katie Romine, and exclusive farm tours. Your box may contain beets, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, cucumbers, eggplant, herbs, kale, kohlrabi, lettuce, melons, microgreens, onions, peppers, radishes, spinach, summer squash, salad mix, sweet corn, Swiss chard, tomatoes, turnips, and winter squash. So there you go. Go check out their website, Noble Gnome LLC, for more details and pricing.
Get your veggies.
Get them while they're ready.
Justin James Watt, also known as JJ Watt, turned 31 yesterday, and he is the only man with as many Defensive Player of the Year awards as this other guy. Who is he tied with 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards?
Man, that's a good one. I'm really going to have to think about that one.
Coming in hot.
Did it take you a while to find that one?
30 seconds
today.
I was looking on Twitter and saw it.
Darn it, I didn't see it. And I try to, I try to follow the same accounts as you, so I can not cheat but get a little advantage.
To be honest, my one source of Birdie Bogey questions, or my only source of Birdie Bogey questions, is on Twitter. So you can go through my Twitter follows and see who I got.
I'm not that desperate enough, at least yet.
You should be.
I should be. Look at my track record's pretty bad.
We should have started keeping count a long time ago of what your actual record was.
It would be way over par. It would not be good. You've got back to back.
I've gotten back to back, but it felt like those were the first two questions I'd gotten right in a while. So trying to sneak up towards par a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely think on that one because I'm going to need to. Let's see here. Well, I got some on this day for you.
Is it better than last week's?
Yeah. I haven't looked over it completely, but just from a brief glance, it sure looks like it's. But the On This Day segment is brought to you by RoadStar Driving School of Fulton County. They got all the services for all of your teen drivers' education needs. You can call them at 574-780-2291 or email them at fulton@roadstardriving.com. And Joel Burris, who is the owner of Fulton of the RoadStar Driving Academy. I am botching this read of Fulton County. He actually supplied a question for later on during the show.
So. Nice.
Okay, what do we got here? Let's see. On this day in 1946, the 8th NCAA Men's Basketball Championship was held as Oklahoma State beat North Carolina 43-40.
Barn burner.
Back-to-back titles for the Cowboys.
We sure Bruce Weber wasn't a coach in one of those games with that final score?
No, not sure at all. So, let's see. The 10th NCAA Men's Basketball Championship was held 2 years later, of course, in 1948. Kentucky beat Baylor 58-42. That was the Wildcats' first victory in their first title game.
They won quite a few after that.
They did. They're a pretty historic blue blood program. On this day in 1957, the 19th NCAA Men's Basketball Championship was held. North Carolina beat Kansas 54-53 in 3 overtimes. Wilt Chamberlain of Kansas became the 4th player to be named tournament MOP despite not playing for the championship team. More NCAA basketball championships on this day in 1963. The 25th edition was played as Loyola Chicago beat Cincinnati 60-58 in overtime.
They ended up going to the Final Four I don't remember what year you said, but quite a while after that.
Yeah, that was in 1963, so just a handful of years
55 years.
Yep. Then 5 years later, the 30th edition was played in 1968. Saw UCLA beat North Carolina 78-55. Gave the Bruins back-to-back titles. Lou Alcindor was the most outstanding player for the second time in 3 years.
Wasn't too shabby.
He's a pretty good player. Let's see, what else we got here? A lot of figure skating stuff. This is a funny one. It doesn't give any details, but it says on this day in 1993, the New York Knicks and Phoenix Suns got into a major brawl. Imagine that. The Knicks always got in fights.
No details on it?
Nope, that's all it said. On this day in 1994, Wayne Gretzky set the NHL record with 802 goals scored.
He wasn't bad either.
No. Hey, we got a pro wrestling one in here. On this day in 1997, WrestleMania 13 in Rosemont Horizon, Illinois, saw The Undertaker beat Psycho Sid for the WWF heavyweight title. I've actually watched that match on the network.
Did you watch the replay of WrestleMania on ESPN
I
last
watched
night?
Bits and pieces of it. I remember
Was
watching
that last year?
That was back in 2014
at
WrestleMania 30, but they're doing that the next 2 Sundays. So
I was scrolling through the channels and saw it and figured you might have tuned in a little bit.
I saw a little bit of it. I watched the Brock Lesnar-Undertaker match. So, yeah. But that is the On This Day segment this week, and looks like we got a decent amount of people here watching on Facebook, so we really appreciate it. Please comment or send in questions as they come to you, and we'll try to get them answered. But we did have some big sports news last week in the NFL. A lot of free agency happened. 2 quarterbacks who had been on the same team all their career, Tom Brady and Phil Rivers, they're in new homes starting next year, Tampa Bay and Indianapolis. So you got your book it wrong of Brady returning to New England.
As I've been saying for months on end, that I was one of those, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, now that the ink is dry on the paper, I have to, I guess, believe it.
A 2-year, $50 million deal.
I assume it's all guaranteed.
It's all guaranteed.
As well.
Yep.
That's fair for him. That was a good fit, in my opinion. It's still kind of weird that he's going to a team like Tampa Bay. But that's probably the team with the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. Have a good tight end in O.J. Howard. They're pretty young, good head coach, in my opinion, Bruce Arians. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works out.
Yeah, it will be interesting. It's interesting that he's going to a franchise who has not made the playoffs since 2007. Their last playoff victory was back in their Super Bowl win over the Raiders.
Wow.
Back in Super Bowl 37. And so he's got 5 times as many playoff wins in his career as the whole franchise in Tampa Bay.
I assume he's the only player on that roster with playoff experience, too. I'm not sure who else they've signed.
Well, Shaq Barrett's playing there. He had some experience in Denver a few years ago. I'm sure they got some other people, too.
Yeah, of the 53 men that are currently on their roster, I'm sure at least a handful have played in the playoffs.
Yeah, not many. Not many at all. But, it's just one of those things. It's getting to the point in sports where it's very rare to see a player in any of the big leagues start and end their career with the same team.
Yep.
I mean, really, who's the last one to do it? Derek Jeter or Kobe? Kobe and Jeter?
I was just kind of thinking of Jeter and Kobe, that they're kind of the last of that breed where, money just took a hold and teams aren't paying their players as much. And they're going out and signing just huge deals with other teams for whatever reason. So
it's. I think he just wants to prove to the fans and to Bill that he can do it without him.
Yeah, I'd also said last week that I really didn't think Tom Brady wanted to be back in New England, even though I thought he ultimately would end up there. I don't think Bill and Tom had the greatest relationship at the end.
No, it sounded like the legs for this were in movement back in 2017.
Right.
So, and I think Bill kind of wants to try to prove he can win without him too. So, which is interesting with their quarterback situation. It's pretty interesting. We can get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But and then also the other big name I was mentioning, or at least around these parts, Phillip Rivers had spent his whole career to date with the San Diego, then L.A. Chargers, going to the Colts on a 1-year, $25 million deal. What are your thoughts on that?
I've also been on record saying how I didn't think signing Phillip Rivers would make the Colts any better. Last year he threw 23 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. His team went 5-11, and in my opinion, that Chargers team is a lot more talented than this Colts team is currently. And they still found a way to go 5-11. Jacoby Brissett, I didn't think he was the answer either. So is it just a 1-year deal?
It's just a 1-year deal. So I don't know.
I still think they'd be better off, or they still need to draft a quarterback early. Of course, they traded their first-round pick to the San Francisco 49ers for DeForest Buckner, so they can't do that in the first round, obviously. And I'm not sure who could be there in round 2 or 3, but they still need a young guy to kind of learn from Phil going forward. Yeah,
they're in a weird position with Brissett now. I think if they got rid of him, they'd only save $3 million. I think it's between $12 million and $15 million. So I guess you just keep him. Just in case Phil goes down, you got a guy who's got experience. But then you're not building for the future. Rivers was on JMV on 1070 The Fan this afternoon, and you could hear the excitement in his voice. He's ready for a new start, kept complimenting the offensive line, talked about how they went in there and beat Kansas City on the road last year. So it's kind of like Tom Brady. It's going to be really strange seeing them in different uniforms.
Yeah, and this is probably good for Philip to kind of get out of Southern California. I mean, it was clear he was never going to win a Super Bowl there. And of course, he's pretty old at this point. He's 38 years old. He'll play majority of the season at 38, turns 39 in December. So it'll be, once again, it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Colts need to upgrade their weapons quite a bit because their receiving corps is not very good. I do like the running back in Marlon Mack, but they need some weapons around Phillip there because he had a pretty good receiving corps out in Los Angeles last year.
Well, that's why I was surprised they traded away their first-round pick. I thought they were in prime position right there to get one of the really good speedy wide receivers.
And the receiving class is loaded,
very
too.
loaded. So, I mean, you can get a good receiver in the second round, but like you said, maybe they look at quarterback in the second round, even though I don't know who that would be right now. But, heck, the mock drafts and all the evaluations are thrown up in the air right now because there's going to be no pro days, so nobody knows what's going to happen. But the NFL draft's still happening, I think, exactly a month from today. Yeah. So I got to get my second mock draft out. Maybe that'll happen next week.
Man. There you go.
It's gonna be a total crapshoot, but we're gonna try. We had a question here from Aaron Lynch, who's been a guest on the show before, and he's a loyal listener. He said, "Who do you think, or whose career would you rather have, Philip Rivers or Dan Fouts?"
That is the easiest question I think I've ever answered on this show, and it is 100% Philip Rivers.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it's a different day, different era. Fouts was in that era where he played in the 70s and 80s, so he put up numbers that really hadn't been seen before from a quarterback when he did it, of course, before Marino came along and did it again.
I mean, he threw for 43,040 yards, 254 touchdowns, but he also had 242 picks.
Yeah, 242 picks.
Played for the same league, same team his whole career. So
Philip is only 729 yards away from 60,000 in his career, 3 touchdowns away from 400 in his career. 198 career interceptions.
Hasn't even thrown 200 interceptions yet.
So, and it's an easy choice in my opinion. And I mean, of course, win-loss record isn't a great way to evaluate a quarterback. But Philip Rivers has better win percentage. He's 123 and 101 in his career, and Dan Fouts is 86, 84 and 1. Phillips played in 11 postseason games. Dan Fouts played in 7. Neither have played in a Super Bowl. I think neither have played in the Super Bowl. I don't know about Fouts. I know obviously Rivers hasn't.
I don't. Let me see. I don't think Fouts has. I think the Chargers actually he might have. They made it against San Francisco. Nope, that was in the 90s. Duh. They made it against San Francisco. I think that's the Chargers' only Super Bowl appearance.
Okay. Yeah. Because they had a stretch where they played at least 2 postseason games from 80 to 82. Got to the conference championship in 80. Got to the conference championship in 81 where they lost to Cincinnati. And then in 82 was, I think, a strike-shortened year. And they lost in the divisional round to the Dolphins. So I don't think old Fouts has ever played in a Super Bowl.
No, they've only played in 1. I'm cheating and looking over here on my Super Bowl graphic down here in the studio. So, Travis Wottring, good friend of the show, a sponsor of the J-Man's Book of Prediction. He said he would love Chase Claypool in the second round by the Colts.
Claypool had a sensational combine. I mean, he's huge. He's 6'5" and ran really fast. I'm not sure the exact number, but he looks like a tight end out there, but ran like a elite wide receiver. And he'd be a solid guy. He might end up sneaking into the first round, though.
Yeah, he's a freak athlete. He was one of those guys whenever he turned on the Notre Dame game, he seemed like he was catching at least 2 touchdowns a game.
Right, he was their go-to.
The other local NFL team, the Chicago Bears, they made some quarterback movement, trade a 4th-round pick to Jacksonville for good old Nick Foles, Super Bowl MVP a couple years ago.
Yeah, Foles, this is the second or third time this has happened. He signed a huge deal with the team and then is gone like a year later. Or 2 years later. He's made a bunch of money in his career, and he had that unbelievable Super Bowl run, but he hasn't proven he can play away from Philadelphia, which is just strange to me.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think this? What signs does this send to Mitchell Trubisky?
He absolutely needed competition there. And if Nick Foles can't beat him out, something went wrong. Because I don't think Trubisky is a guy that can actually go out there and beat out a guy like Nick Foles. Foles would just have to play just extraordinarily bad for it to happen. I think Trubisky's done in Chicago. I mean, he's their first-round pick. You almost can't have him be your backup. There'd just be too much media and distractions and stuff. So they might end up just having to cut him if Foles plays to his ability.
I mean, looking back on that, look what all they gave up to move up and get him at number 2 overall.
To move up one spot because they were picking 3rd.
Yeah, because they thought San Fran was going to jump on them. San Fran bait and hooked them.
And they had, of course, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes still out there. However, of course, Patrick Mahomes was not a given, surefire superstar like he's turned into. But neither was Trubisky. I would have said Watson was far more ready at the time.
Yep.
But Ryan Pace tried to prove to people that he's smarter than everyone else, and it's backfired on him.
Yeah, and the Bears' only other – I know they've made some moves, but they got Jimmy Graham, kind of the corpse of Jimmy Graham now.
Yeah, that would have been a great move about 5 years ago.
They gave him a 2-year deal, so, I mean, I don't know. I still think they need wide receivers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't see them do much so far in free agency that moves the needle. But
they've signed a few defensive guys, but they were to like 1 or 2 year deals, and guaranteed money's not huge. So I don't think they really made a splash in free agency. Besides, of course, the trade of Foles. So
yeah, it's I don't know. And then your Dolphins have made some nice moves.
Yeah, I think they've given out the most guaranteed money, if I'm not mistaken. They needed to revamp their offensive line, and they've done that, signing 2 offensive linemen, Eric Flowers and Teddy Karras, who's from Indianapolis and played at the University of Illinois.
So he's your favorite player then? I mean,
they actually signed 2 Illinois guys. Clayton Fedulum, who played for the Bengals, safety and one of the best special teamers in the NFL, signed him to, I think, a 2 or 3 year deal.
You work undercover for the Dolphins, don't you? And give them
I do,
information.
Yeah.
Next thing we know, Beckman's going to be on the sidelines as assistant coach and down there in Miami.
I'm trying not to say anything inappropriate about Tim Beckman, so don't get me started.
He's got you blocked on Twitter. That's all that matters.
Yeah. That says all you need to know.
But I think we're both pretty happy with what our teams are doing. I know I am from the Broncos standpoint. They got Glasgow, as we mentioned last week, but then they traded with the Titans for Jarrell Casey, and then they got Melvin Gordon. I didn't really see that coming.
I didn't see that coming at all.
I think that'll probably make Philip Lindsay a little mad, but I think competition's good, and I like that 1-2 punch.
Absolutely.
It was a 2-year, $16 million deal, so it's a pretty friendly deal.
I think every NFL team needs 2 starting caliber running backs on their roster because, I mean, they take a lot of hits.
Yep.
I mean, Lindsey's had injury issues anyway.
Yep. Yes.
And Melvin Gordon essentially sat out majority of last year.
Yeah,
I don't remember when he actually came back, so he's a little more fresh.
Yeah,
I would say.
He bet on himself, and it kind of backfired because he saw the deals Gurley and those guys were getting.
Yeah, and he wasn't in the same league as those guys. Of course, Todd Gurley ended up not being in that kind of category either.
Yep, running backs are kind of sometimes a flash in the pan. But with that said, I think he's got a lot of game left. It's not like Jamal Charles when they got him in this final year where he just had nothing left in the tank, even though I thought Vance Joseph and staff didn't use him correctly. But, I like it, and I think that tells me they don't believe a lot in Royce Freeman, who was only in his second year last year, but I think the writing's kind of on the wall there for him. But, no, I like it. They did, say goodbye to Chris Harris Jr., who actually signed with a division rival in the Chargers, which talk about a good defensive backfield there. Holy cow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their defense is loaded. The AFC West is going to be a tough division. But speaking of tough divisions, how about the NFC South?
They just keep getting better, don't they? I mean, Tom Brady signs as we said, and the whole world knows by now.
Well,
Todd Gurley.
And every free agent, I feel like, wants to go to Tampa now. So
yeah, absolutely. Which I don't blame him because Tom Brady's a proven winner.
Yep.
Todd Gurley, he's only 25, 26 years old, but we had a buddy say he seems like a fragile old man.
He does.
And he really does. And it wasn't really, at first when I saw a 1-year deal, I was kind of surprised, but then the more I thought about it, Sean McVay didn't use him that much last year, got hurt the year before, and C.J. Anderson kind of passed him, didn't he, during the Super Bowl run?
Yep. Sure did.
So it ended up not being a shock, but he still, in my opinion, has a lot left in the tank. Who knows if he'll actually be able to reach that potential, though.
Yep. And then you had the Saints got Emmanuel Sanders. That's a nice toy for Drew Brees. A nice 2 to go along with Michael Thomas.
Oh, that's huge because Emmanuel Sanders is one of the best route runners in the NFL. He's just that wily old vet. Still fast, too. Has good hands.
You realize this is the 4th Super Bowl MVP quarterback he's going to play with? That's got to be a record, isn't it?
Big Ben, Peyton, Flacco, and Brady. Man,
that's got to be a record. And if he could win a Super Bowl with them, that would be 3 titles on 3 different teams. That's got to be close to something,
that doesn't
too.
Happen.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice pick for the Saints. Offense should be dynamite again next year, but they'll probably find a way to kick below the belt and lose in the playoffs.
They'll get like the 1 seed or at least a bye and just find a way to lose on a last-second field goal because they committed a like pass interference in the end zone or something on a Hail Mary and.
The legend of Kyle Turley will come on the field and throw his helmet.
Throw his
stands
helmet
or something.
The stands.
But then that brings me to the 4th team in the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers made an interesting move, signing Teddy Bridgewater to a 3-year, $66 million deal. And then today, they picked up really the best player in the short-lived XFL season, P.J. Walker from the Houston Renegades, I believe, or Roughnecks, I think. Roughnecks. I think Dallas was the Renegades. Roughnecks. He was a quarterback, so they got him. I think that the writing's on the wall. Cam, you better start looking for a new home. So that brings me to this question. I sent this out to the Tan and J Man Show Nation on Facebook and Twitter and got a few responses. I want your opinion too, J Man. Where does Cam Newton, Andy Dalton, Joe Flacco, and Jameis Winston end up next year?
I haven't really thought about it, but going back to the P.J. Walker thing real quick. He was, what the heck's their coach's name? Panthers.
Matt Rule, yeah.
He was Matt Rule's quarterback at Temple, so he knows him pretty well.
That makes sense.
So it makes sense. But as for those other guys, there's really, I would say, only one place where you're absolutely guaranteed the starting quarterback job if you were to go to there, and it's crazy to say, but it's the New England Patriots.
I'm not so sure now after what they did yesterday.
You don't think those guys can beat out Brian Hoyer?
Well, here's what I honestly think they love Jared Stidham for this year. I think they're going to let it go between Stidham and Hoyer. I mean, Hoyer goes back. This is his 3rd trip back to New England in a system he already knows. So he's got a leg up on those guys already. I mean, it is not a sexy pick, either one, by quarterback, but I think that's the direction they're going to go. I don't think they touch these other guys.
I don't think they touch the other guys either because those other guys really aren't ones that I would want running my offense for 16 games.
No.
The Patriots also have Cody Kessler, who has experience with the Browns. But that's not a great quarterback.
No, not at all. But
I'd probably just rather roll with the rookie, see what you have in him. I think the rest of those guys have to be backups somewhere. Maybe say the Bengals do something crazy and don't draft Joe Burrow. I mean, maybe Andy Dalton is their starter again, which I just can't believe it actually would happen. But
it's kind of funny. I'll go over to the answers real quick, and then I'll kind of put my opinion. And we had 3 people answer. Rhett Lee, who's been a loyal listener of the show, we appreciate that. He said Dalton could be a decent system QB for the Pats. This was before Hoyer re-signed with them. He said Cam Newton to the Chargers. Flacco, he just said bench. And then Jameis Winston, he said Florida State prison rec team.
It's a good one.
Ricky Wilson, who's also an out-of-state listener of the Tan and J-Man show, he said Jameis Winston to the Pats, Dalton to the Chargers, Newton to the Redskins. He did not put an answer to Flacco. And then John Mars, another loyal listener, said Newton to the Chargers, Winston to the Pats, Dalton to the Redskins, Flacco to an insurance agency.
Flacco looks like an insurance salesman. And I don't mean that as a bad thing, because obviously the J-Man's Bucket Prediction of the Week is brought to you by an insurance salesman.
Good way to cover your tracks there.
He has the face of an insurance salesman. The Redskins did trade for a quarterback today. They traded for Kyle Allen, who had that great stretch with Carolina before it all came crashing
Ron Rivera
down.
is their new coach, so that makes sense.
That's right. Man, it's so tough.
I don't know where these guys end up. I think Dallas gets one of them. I don't know who. I think Dallas gets one of them. Maybe a Flacco.
I think all three of those guys wait until after the draft to sign anywhere to see if they have any shot to be a starter anywhere.
Yeah, Cam's still got to get traded, but
yeah, he still has to get traded. But it's one of those things where they let of course, who knows if he can even go on visits. But guys they're trying to trade, they'll let go on visits, see which is the best spot for them, and then the teams will kind of get together and try to work out a deal. Yeah. Dolphins did that with Robert Quinn last year. He was still under contract, but they let him go out, take like free agent visits, and then they came to terms with the Cowboys in a trade.
Yeah.
Now, as for the Chargers, it'd probably be, I wouldn't say they'd be a guaranteed start because I've always been a big fan of Tyrod Taylor. Of course, a lot of it has to do with how much he used to kill the Dolphins every year. So that kind of skews my bias towards him. But I could absolutely see a Jameis Winston or I don't know about Flacco or Dalton beating him out. But I could see Jameis beating him out there in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to follow all those guys' situation. But yeah, you got to be thrilled because the big news was Tom Brady going to Tampa, and that kind of opens up the AFC East for the first time in about 20 years. So
New England in Vegas still has the best odds to win the division next year.
Give me the Bills.
The Bills have second best odds, Dolphins third, Jets fourth.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say give me the Bills as well. They traded for Stephon Diggs. He was kind of a headache there all year with the whole trade, demanding a trade and stuff. But he's also one of the best route runners in the NFL. Gives Josh Allen another target to go along with John Brown out there. So yeah, and they've always had a solid defense. So I would say give me the Bills right now. But of course, draft still has to happen, so it'll be interesting.
Yep. Any other thoughts on NFL free agency before we move on to a few other fan questions and topics?
I do not think I have anything else. No.
I'm sure I do, but I can't think of anything, so we're going to move on. My dad gave us some good trivia questions and some cool facts. I'm going to go over the facts first. The first bunch of facts have to do with Elite Eight appearances since 2000. Kind of sad that we're not talking about the Sweet 16 Elite Eight matchups as we should be.
I don't want to talk about it.
No, this
I don't
week.
want to talk about it.
Can you tell me the school who has made the most Elite Eight appearances since 2000? So the last 20.
Since 2000. Trying to think who's won titles in that span. It seems like North Carolina is always right there, so I'm going to go Carolina.
Carolina is second in a three-way tie with 9. There's been 55 schools that have made the Elite Eight in the last 20 years. 45 of them have come from Power 5 plus the Big East. That includes UConn when they were in the Big East. But the most with 10 appearances is Kansas.
Kansas. I wasn't even thinking Kansas. I was thinking Duke, but they've had a couple
Duke
years.
Duke has had 7.
Where they've lost in that 14-3, 15-2 kind of matchup. So
you got Kansas with 10, Duke with 7. You got Kentucky, Michigan State, of course, and UNC with 9. You also got Florida with 8.
Wow.
So all those other schools I would say are blue bloods. Why are we not considering Florida higher? Why do we think of them right away as a football school?
They won. It's because they play in the SEC and
good
have
point.
had NF1 national titles in football, whereas another SEC school in Kentucky has not had the success.
That's a good point.
In football. But I mean, Florida won back-to-back national championships.
Yep.
But I still don't view them as a basketball
No,
school.
I don't either. Then you got, with 6 appearances, you got UConn, Louisville, and Arizona, which
it seems like each year UConn makes the Elite Eight. They end up playing in the national championship and winning it.
They're probably the best program of our lifetime that nobody talks about. 3 national titles. Then with 4 Elite Eight appearances, one of these schools shocked me. You have Villanova, Syracuse, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, and Oregon. I would have never guessed Oregon had 4 Elite Eight appearances.
Dana Altman, man, he knows what he's doing out there. And they probably all come within the last 10 years, I'd say, or pretty close to it.
Well, remember they had Luke Ridnour, and I feel like they made one under him with him.
Yeah, they had good teams back in the early 2000s too, but they've been consistently the best team in the Pac-12 probably the past decade or so.
Then with 3 appearances, you have Gonzaga, Xavier, Ohio State, Michigan, Memphis, Texas, and UCLA. 2 appearances, you have both of our schools, Purdue and Illinois, along with Virginia, Texas Tech, Kansas State, Notre Dame, Butler, Baylor, Marquette, West Virginia, Missouri, Maryland, and Oklahoma State. And then with 1 appearance, you have Auburn, Loyola, Florida State, South Carolina, VCU, Tennessee, Pitt, Davidson, Georgetown, LSU, George Mason, St. Joe, Georgia Tech, Alabama, Indiana, Kent State, USC, Stanford, Temple, Tulsa, Iowa State, Dayton, and Wichita State.
You know who's kind of surprised me? Only has 1, and that's Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They were really good with Jamie Dixon.
Yeah.
They even did they make a Final Four under Dixon? I don't remember. It felt like they did, but they obviously didn't. That kind of surprises me because they were one of the best teams in the Big East there for a 5 or 6 year stretch.
My dad lists down here best schools to not make Elite Eight this century. He put NC State, Iowa, Arkansas, Minnesota, Providence, Washington, Cincinnati, St. John's, Creighton, UNLV, and Georgia. And then 3 states have 4 schools in the Elite Eight. That's Indiana, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. 27 states have had a participant in at least one of the 20 tourneys this century. Most surprising state not to have a team, he said either Utah or Mississippi. Philadelphia has had 3 in the Elite Eight, in Temple, St. Joe, and Villanova.
Philadelphia is a good basketball town.
Yes, it is. Not too shabby. Now we get into, he gave us some questions, and I'm hoping he texts me the answers because I did not look these up. I was hoping you and I could collaborate and get the right answers here. The first one's got to do with NFL draft. He said, what school has had the most number 1 overall draft picks since 2000? And then he said 14 quarterbacks have been drafted number 1 overall since 2000, not counting Kyler Murray. Named a 3 that never made the Pro Bowl.
Wow.
Well, Johnny wasn't number 1. I was going to say Johnny Manziel.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of the players who have been taken number 1. We had Cam Newton. He obviously made a Pro Bowl.
Did Baker make one yet?
The Pro Bowl's so watered down. He might have been an alternate the past couple years. But I would probably put Baker on the list of potential ones that haven't. Was Tim Couch drafted this decade, or was he 99?
I believe.
Okay.
If not, he might be. Gosh, I can't. I am just going brain dead right now. Michael Vick made it.
Andrew Luck made it.
I'm guessing Palmer made one somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure Palmer made one. Of course, like Leinart and Vince Young weren't number 1 overall.
Nope.
Man, I have no clue.
Well, what school number 1 overall draft? I was thinking Oklahoma, but I'm just thinking of Baker and Kyler.
Has USC had any?
Well, Leinart and Bush weren't one.
No, Palmer was. Mark Sanchez wasn't. Mario Williams was out of NC State.
I was correct in Oklahoma.
Was he?
And then the 3, we should be kicking ourselves. Sam Bradford, Jamarcus Russell, and David Carr.
Oh, good Lord. It's embarrassing.
This one's MLB, so I'm leaning on you here. There's
great.
no baseball in April this year.
Don't tell me.
Most home runs by one player in April is 14. There's one in each league. There are home runs only in April. Does not count any that may have been hit in March. Who were they?
I have no idea.
I have no guess either. Actually, wasn't there a dude on the Blue Jays a couple years that got red hot in April? I'm going to go with Carlos Delgado was one of my guesses.
Well, that's a name from the past.
Yeah.
I might have to just go Blue Jay as well and say Jose Bautista. It seems like Chris Davis of the Orioles had an unbelievable April one year. And he ended up hitting like 50-some homers, but it felt like he was hitting a homer every single day in April. Of course, we're probably way off. It might have happened back
A-Rod and Pujols.
See, those would have been pretty good guesses.
Oh, man, we are just getting Fs here.
We suck.
One last question. This is NBA. What team has the longest current playoff drought going?
Longest current playoff drought going? Timberwolves made it
I'm going with the Kings. Ago. I'm going with the Kings.
Has to be the Kings.
If not them, it's got to be the Hornets, I think. But I think it's got to be the Kings.
And Hornets were just in it a few years ago, and I want to say they beat the Bulls in a post.
Well, the Hornets were in it when they were the Bobcats. I know a couple of times.
I want to say they've made it as the Hornets too. It has to be the Kings.
I'm going Kings. He's typing here, so let's see. It can't be that. It can't take that long, Dad, to type one word.
It's 5 letters.
Kings. Baker, no Pro Bowl either. So, hey, okay. All right.
You got one.
Yeah. So, thank you for submitting those questions and topics, Dad.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Speaking of baseball, I mentioned earlier Joe Burris, who runs RoadStar Driving Academy of Fulton County. He mentioned to me this morning that Mark Teixeira and Buster Only, whatever his name is.
Buster Only.
Thank you. Was on with Mike Greenberg this morning on Get Up, and they were talking about what could potentially be done with baseball. And it was interesting, a few things they were talking about. Buster and Tex both said baseball players will probably need 3 weeks to get ready. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what happened back in 95 when the strike, when the strike ended, because they came to agreement early, I think April 2nd, and then by April 24th, they were on the field.
Yes.
Buster thought there could be a lot of double headers to get in as many games as possible. Tex thought that was a terrible idea.
That is a terrible idea.
Buster also brought up that there's been discussions of playing the season clear into mid-November and then starting the playoffs that would last till mid-December in dome stadiums or stadiums that have roofs or warm weather neutral fields.
I was going to say, could you imagine a Cubs-Twins World Series?
in natural elements?
In
no.
mid-December?
So, I mean, you're the baseball guru, nut, fan. What are your thoughts? I mean, what is nobody knows right now. It's just best guess when baseball's going to start. It would be great if they start in June and could have 100 season or 100-game season, but I just don't know.
I will go on record, and this might just have to be the J-Man's book and prediction of the week, but it's for the rest of the year. So this will be because there's literally nothing to book right now, so I'm just going to have to wing it. I don't think they play a baseball season this year. That's just my guess. I think the Olympics were postponed today. I just feel like it's going to stretch into football season, and they're just going to cancel the baseball season altogether, and service time and all that crap will be screwed up. But if it were up to me right now, I would hope the season would start by like July 4th and then just play. I think just cut the first 3 months of the season out, just cut all those games out and just play where the schedule is on July 4th, play the rest of the year, play the playoffs, all that. So that is my views on it. The doubleheader thing's a terrible idea. The players would never agree to that because they just don't want to play. They'll all just be worn out. So that would be my idea.
Well, and Buster even brought up doing some sort of like NCAA tournament format. I don't know how that would work, but
yeah,
I don't know. There's so many things being thrown out there right now. So
Buster is a proven terrible idea man, so that doesn't surprise
and you can
me.
tweet that to him.
He might have actually joined the ranks and blocked me a while ago.
Him, Schilling, Beckman.
Dolphins beat writer Omar Kelly.
I don't think I've been blocked by anybody, but maybe I have. I don't know. But the J-Man's Book It prediction of the week, or in this case, the foreseeable future, is brought to you by Indiana Farm Bureau insurance agent Travis Wottring. For your life, home, auto, renters, business, workers' comp, farm insurance, and more, contact him at 219-869-4561. His email is at travis.wottring@infb.com. And he wanted me to make sure you know that insurance companies will remain open, which means he'll be working 24/7 for all of your insurance needs during this lockdown. Please don't hesitate to call or text him for any questions or quotes. And I already went over what he specializes in. So he is not taking a day off.
No, sir. Some football news real quick that we didn't mention. Cowboys center Travis Frederick is retiring.
I did not know that.
He's only 29 years old, been in the league 7 years, and has made 5 Pro Bowls, and he's retiring.
That's big news because I know he's one of the 6 Cowboys offensive players that like 75% of their money is tied into.
Yeah, so that frees up some cap space for him.
Yes, it does. And that's good timing for them with Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. So.
And Dak as well, yes.
So got a couple more questions here. This is one we missed last week from Mitch Melton. And I don't have the question up in front of me, so I'm kind of just trying to guess and remember what he said. It was along the lines of our thoughts on the NCAA potentially giving basketball players or seniors who missed out on the tournament and everything eligibility for next year. I just don't see that happening.
I agree. They played a full season. It's just terrible they weren't allowed. The seniors that were on good teams not allowed to play in an NCAA tournament. But the fact that they were able to play a full season, I don't think you can give them an extra year of eligibility. However, for the spring sports, it sounds like the NCAA is going to give them an extra year. That'll be interesting scholarship-wise and recruiting and all that for the next really couple years. Because if you're giving seniors all an extra year of eligibility, seems like you should be giving every single player on the roster extra year of eligibility because they also lost.
Yes,
a year. So that'll be something the NCAA will have to shake out come next spring.
Yeah, that will be interesting to watch how that all unfolds for sure. So got another question from our good friend Evan Webb. He sent this in last week and we didn't get to it. If quarantined for a month, which we definitely could be, it looks like.
Yeah.
And you could only watch 5 sports movies on repeat, which 5 would you watch? Same question pertains to 5 sporting events.
All right, you want me to go first?
Yes, please.
Let's do the movies first.
Okay.
So I actually
never finished my list. I only wrote 3 down. Crud.
I actually went kind of in order. Well, I didn't for movies. I did for games. I did like 1 through 5, like number 1 being the one I'd want to watch most, down, etc. But movies I didn't. I do have Remember the Titans. I think that's your favorite sports movie.
That's my favorite overall movie, so that is
overall
on my list.
Movie, okay.
Yes.
I have The Sandlot on there as well. It's just a nostalgic movie for me. My mom, sister, and I used to go to the city pool a bunch when I was a kid in the 90s. And then after we'd go to the city pool, we'd go to the library so I could check out one movie. And it was usually The Sandlot, Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield, some baseball movie when I was like 6 years old. But The Sandlot, absolutely for nostalgic reasons. Number 3, I have Friday Night Lights. I love that movie. I think it came out when we were in middle school.
Sounds about right.
And I think I got it for Christmas, and I watched it all the time. Never got old. Number 4, Moneyball. It was kind of a coin flip. I was thinking Moneyball, Major League. I love Glory Road as well, basketball movie.
That movie bothers me a little bit because there's a lot of. I know they say it's based on true story, but a lot of it they missed, so it just kind of bugs me. I don't know, but good movie.
Yeah, and I think I got that for Christmas as well back when we were like freshmen in high school, and I watched it all the time. Maybe that's why. I haven't seen it in like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But Moneyball's on the list. I'm going to be one of those people and say the book's a lot better because I love the book.
Most people say that about movies that were books first. Yeah.
Yeah. And Moneyball, the book, goes into so much more detail about the draft process. But I love the movie as well. How can you not be romantic about baseball? One of my favorite sports movie quotes ever. Number 5, I wanted to be different and put a movie on here that probably people wouldn't put on, and that's The Fighter. I loved it.
Oh, good one.
So much. Mark Wahlberg, Christian Bale was phenomenal in it. A true story. I love that one as well. And I think I've only watched it once and I saw it in theaters, but that was one I absolutely loved, and it is on the list.
Good one. We only have one similar. That'd be Remember the Titans. I don't have this in order, but I'll just put Caddyshack on there.
I figured that was
being a big golfer, and I know a lot of people. I know people who don't like that movie too much. I know you said you didn't really care for it too much. But it's got some scenes that are just classics to me.
It's a funny movie, but it just for some reason it just didn't make sense to me. Like the storyline was just kind of jumped around and stuff. But
I mean, you got young Bill Murray, Chevy Chase.
You can't go wrong. You have Rodney Dangerfield.
He was great. Spalding was hilarious because he was an idiot. But the second movie was one of the worst movies ever made. The second Caddyshack.
Yeah.
Hoosiers is on there. I feel like living in Indiana, you kind of almost have to put that on there. And
didn't even think about Hoosiers.
I love when Gene Hackman's going through the doors and said, "Welcome to Indiana basketball," or "This is Indiana basketball," or something like that before the sectionals, and he walked through the door. Always like that part. This is where I didn't finish my list. So now, I'm going through, and you brought up some nostalgia ones like The Sandlot and Angels in the Outfield, and Friday Night Lights was a good one. I like Miracle a lot. I think Miracle's a
thought
really
about putting that one on my list.
I might have to go with Rocky on there just to be a little different. And then another one. I'm trying to think. Maybe Happy Gilmore from another comic relief. I don't know.
There you go.
I didn't finish out my list, so I wasn't real prepared. So, how about the 5 sporting events? I thought this was a really interesting question.
That's a great question. I'm going to leave one off my list that might surprise you. But number 1, absolutely 2005 Elite 8 game, Illinois, Arizona.
That's number 1?
Absolutely number 1.
I thought that'd be your number 2.
Nope. Actually, the one you think is going to be my number 1 is not even on my list, I'm sure.
Wow.
But my number 2, Game 6 of the 2016 National League Championship Series. That was a stress-free game.
I watched that with you.
You did. You and our buddy Jeff Ryan got to watch it with me. And that was a cool moment. It was stress-free. Kyle Hendricks was awesome. Crowd was unbelievable. And that's a game I could watch over and over and over again and never get tired of. Number 3, Game 4 of the 2016 National League Division Series. Cubs down 3 runs in the 9th inning. Come back, score 4 off of 6 Giants relievers. Felt like Bruce Bochy was putting in a different pitcher for each pitch they threw that inning. Cubs came back and won and to move on to the NLCS. Number 4, Game 4 of the 2015 National League Division Series. They beat the Cardinals. They won the wild card game to advance to the division round to play the Cardinals. Cardinals had the best record in, I think, baseball that year. And Cubs really took it to them. Schwarber hit the ball on top of the scoreboard. So that was a really cool moment. The number 5 was Game 5 of the 2016 World Series. That was probably, in my opinion, the best game of the entire postseason. Cubs won 3-2. Aroldis Chapman came in through 2 2/3 scoreless innings to shut her down. So those are my 5. As for Game 7 of the 2016 World Series, I've watched it over and over and over again, and I still have a hard time watching when Rajai Davis hits that 2-run homer.
Sure.
You just can't do it.
Sure.
It just brings back how I was feeling at the time. Of course, I know the outcome was good for me, but I just don't even like rewatching the game.
And to throw you under the bus a little bit, before we started recording tonight, Josh said he's been so bored and stir crazy that he was watching the old Cub game yesterday and he yelled at the umpire.
Gotta keep things normal in these times.
Yep. Gotta be ready when things resume. So
yep.
My 5, I don't have them in order. I should have put them in order, but I don't. Or maybe I do. I don't know. The 2016, or the game was played in 16. The season was actually 15. But AFC Championship game between the Broncos and the Patriots ended up being a 2-point game, and the Broncos' victory. I just remember how stressed and nervous I was going into that 2-point conversion play because I knew they were going to throw it to Gronk, who was just dominating the game late. And ball got tipped up in the air and picked off by Bradley Roby. And just to know that the Broncos were going to their second Super Bowl in 3 years, and that was pretty special. Always special to beat Brady. Also on there is Purdue-Ohio State football 2 years ago in 2018. The Tyler Trent game. Purdue just whooped on a really good Ohio State team.
Absolutely did.
Everything, the stars just kind of aligned that night, and still get chills watching and listening to highlights of that game. Also got another Purdue football one against Ohio State back in 2000, known as the pass in Purdue football. Drew Brees to Seth Morales, which ultimately ended up getting them over the hump and putting them in position to tie for the Big Ten championship and get that tiebreaker and go to their first Rose Bowl since 1966. That was my third Purdue game I ever went to, and I still vividly remember that pass happening and just the stadium shaking. It was crazy. One more Purdue one I have. This one might shock a lot of people. This is a basketball one. Purdue and Washington in the second round of the NCAA tournament in 2009. Really good basketball game. Came down to the end, and Juwan Johnson had back-to-back blocks. That was a Washington team. It had John Brockman, Isaiah Thomas, Quincy Poindexter, I believe, was on that team.
Was Spencer Hawes on that team as well?
I don't think so.
He might have been a year or two earlier.
But that got Purdue to their first Sweet 16 in 9 years at the time. And then I got a golf one, the Players' Championship in 2015. Ricky Fowler came out of nowhere the last 6 holes, then went into the 4-man playoff, and he was just sensational, especially on hole 17, birdieing it 3 or 4 times in a row. And that was his biggest win of his career to date. So those are my 5. I know a lot of people would be surprised I don't have Super Bowl 50 in there. I actually watched Super Bowl 50 on Saturday, I think it was. And as much as I enjoy watching it, since that was the Broncos' most recent championship victory, it was a very boring game besides Von Miller making 2 big plays. There was a defensive battle between both teams. So, Yep.
All right, you want to hear Birdie Bogey before we go?
Yep.
J.J. Watt turned 31 yesterday, and he has 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards in his career, which is tied with this player for most ever.
Oh, man. Man. Can I get a hint? It was in our lifetime. Did I lose you? I think we might have lost Josh. That was not ideal timing. Let's see if I can call him back real quick. That was not ideal. And his phone, yep, I'm not able to get him. And he said it was Lawrence Taylor, and that was one of the many guys that was going through my head, but I got to admit that was not going to be one of my guesses, or at least my final guess. So I would have got a bogey, but I guess we'll act like that never happened. So thank you, everybody who joined in to watching this week's, or watching and or listening to this week's episode of the Tan and J Man Show. Please be patient with us the next few weeks as we're not in our normal routine, but we will get through it. And keep submitting questions and topics. They really help us get through this show because, as you know, nothing is going on in the sports world. But we will be back next Monday for another episode of the Tan and J Man Show. Have a great week, everybody. Stay healthy. Stay safe.